this is not even reminiscent of the story in the animated original movie. They reworked quite literally every last part of it. The original music is nowhere to be heard, and it's just unnerving to watch such a visual approximation of something
again, spoiler alert,
that has nothing in common with it in spirit. I don't think that this Snow White is even bad enough where you can enjoy hate watching it. It didn't even leave me feeling angry or indignant in a satisfying way. I thought it was just so lifeless. I left feeling nothing.
Usually when I do a tweet about a movie, those tend to be, at least for me, it's kind of like, what are your initial thoughts? What are the things that really stick on your brain when you leave a movie? The underpinnings of the film definitely had this, like, as long as we all work together, we can overcome anything type of messaging. But what really stuck out to me was that Rachel Zegler, for all her flaws in promoting a movie, can emote and inflect more in song than Gal Gadot managed to do just speaking. That's a problem because the evil queen doesn't really have any screen presence or charisma. A lot of it feels like she's tripping over her words, so that's an issue. I do think that the magical creatures and the dwarves will be enjoyable, especially for the kids and the women. I don't think that those will be the downside. The issue with the dwarves being as good as they are, and I did like them, is that it made Disney create everything around them CGI. So they couldn't go out into the woods. They couldn't plow some fields and build a cottage somewhere and then do digital animation on top of it. Literally half the movie, the whole middle half of the movie, is this very, very blatant CGI, which leaves you feeling very disconnected from the rest of the film. When they're at the castle, it's noticeable too, but the grandiose nature of the size of the castle and the land around it lends itself to being CGI, so I get that, even if I still think it's a mistake. There's no reason why you couldn't go out, build a physical cottage in location, and bring some realism and some real feel to the visuals of this movie.
As for Rachel Zegler's skills, obviously she's a really good singer.
She is.
But the style of her singing leaves a lot to be desired when you compare it to how it sounded in the original, because the original voice actress was an operatic singer. It's not the right style. It's not the right lyrics. And then as for Gal Gadot, she's failing to be an intimidating villain. She, as you said, has this charming smile. And
she does.
She just looks like she's stifling herself to sound mean, and it's not working. I could also tell immediately what people were referring to when they said this movie is going to give drag queens a whole lot of material for their performances, because Gal Gadot's costuming, makeup, and her own like choreography and singing numbers were basically straight ripped out of RuPaul's Drag Race. They were all voguing, and it was very... It was just like giving like fan service to the gay theater adults.
Let me tell you how they could have better used Gal Gadot. So the thing that I noticed is, and they make her entrance into the film very brief, the way that she woos the king. It's over in less than a second. But what you get is she comes into the castle. She's not wearing her drag-like costume. Yeah. She's wearing normal clothes, and she flashes that smile of hers at the king, and you instantly know why this guy, after the death of his wife, he's lonely. You can see how a guy like that might be enchanted by this. So a better course of action here, if you're going to make as many changes to the story as you did, maybe what you show is the gradual descent into evil for her character, rather than switching strictly to the villainous stuff, which she just wasn't that good at.
She's not good at that.
But showing her be unbelievably charismatic and charming towards the king might have been a better use of her talent than just immediately trying to get her to ham it up in a way that her accent and her grasp of English inflection just didn't really lend itself to.
The thing is, she walks in and you're supposed to immediately know she's a witch. So she was evil all along. There was no descent into madness. There was no descent into evil. She was always evil. And I like that. I like that she can just be evil and that there's no backstory.
Then they needed another actress to do that.
But they needed another actress to do that. And then as for the dwarves, you're wrong. I mean, I hated the dwarves. I hated Jonathan, who would have been the prince, but wasn't, more. But the dwarfs were just annoying little shit stains. They were awful. And when you compare them to the way that they acted in the animated movie, you can see the dwarfs, they like, you know, bicker a tiny bit, but they mostly get along and work together. And when they confront Snow White, most of them immediately fall in love with her in a romantic way. They fall in love with her, except for Grumpy, who is like, you know, playing a little bit hard to get. I don't know. And especially Dopey is like absolutely head over heels in love with her. And in this one, she comes across the dwarfs and they are loud, obnoxious, they're like panicky male leads. And they all like fight each other like maniacs, like pulling each other's hair out, like physical, like tussling with each other. And then they're cruelly bullying Dopey. Like, Dopey in this movie is basically disabled, like mentally disabled. He can't speak. And they bully him like in a very like sociopathic way, like pouring food on his head.
This is for the purpose of him having an actual character
to give
arc.
to give Dopey a character arc that he never needed to have in the first place. So the dwarfs were awful. They're also what you say about the way you react to the characters in Polar Express is the way I felt about the dwarfs in this movie. They're extremely creepy to look at, the movements of the fake CGI faces. I mean, it goes without saying they would have been much better off just hiring dwarf actors, but, you know, that battle is already lost. And we found out who that polycule was of all of these, you know, non-binary, racially diverse, magical friends. That was the bandits, the group of bandits accompanying Jonathan, her love interest.
Yes, her lovable man.
So they weren't actually supposed to be the replacements for the dwarfs ever. They were a different group.
A lot of people suspect that they added the dwarves after and that they were never supposed to be part of the movie at all, and it was going to be the bandits only in the film.
That's wild.
And they were going to cut them, which makes no sense because they add the entire storyline about Dopey. It doesn't make sense.
But then you said that they planned it as a kung fu movie, basically.
Yes, I posted a thing today that originally in 2012 this was conceived as a kung fu movie with monks instead of dwarves, and kung fu dwarf monks would have been awesome, and I would have watched the crap out of that. I want to talk about fairness, because the word fairness is said like 9,000 times in the making of this movie, and I'm not even kidding you. 9,000 times they say the word fairness.
Fearless, fair, brave. And
it's a kingdom for the free and the fair. For the For the fearless and the fair.
Fearless, fair, brave, and true.
And
is the mantra.
What the king and the queen are, if we're being honest, and they're not honest about it, is they're the boss who buys you a pizza party on Friday to keep you happy. They are. So the way that you can tell the difference between the evil queen and the lovable king and queen is that it's overcast when the evil queen is in charge. I get that. That's a visual cue. That makes sense. But what they talk about is the king would... She literally says he gave them scraps. He went out and picked apples and made pies for people to keep people happy. He gave them a pizza party. He still sleeps in the castle, does he not? Like, again, I want to preface. Look, kids are not going to think that hard about this. No. It's a matter of whether you think very, very heavily about the type of movies that are made and whether you consider it propaganda. I'm going to guess that most parents, not the ones in this space, obviously, most of the people watching this are probably going to keep their kids away from it because they don't like the messaging. But the average parent isn't going to see that. They're going to see it as a very, very simplistic form of storytelling about fairness and kindness, and they're not going to think about the undertones to it. But even if you go, and I was just curious, I asked ChatGPT like what it considers the differences were between the 1937 and the 2025 one, and they definitely point out that a lot of it is about cooperation and community building.
Right.
Which is that is about as much modernity as I can handle.
Jack Posobiec actually tweeted out a mini review of the movie saying There's no prince. Instead, Snow White falls in love with a dirtbag leftist thief who urges her to lead a people's rebellion against the white fascist queen. This is the actual plot of the film. I know it's phrased in a really inflammatory way, but I swear that actually is the way it goes down. And we pointed this out with
the white fascist queen might be a complaint if the king and the queen before her were not white, but they were. So that's not. Oh, I guess the mom isn't, but the dad is.
The mom isn't.
But the dad is the focus. The mom is very little of the focus. The focus is on how she wants to be like all that her dad wanted her to be. So it's not like he's framed as a bad person.
No.
So I take issue with him framing it that way.
He said the queen though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like him bringing it up about the queen.
Well, yeah, but he's just being hyperbolic. Yeah. My point being, the substance of what he's saying here is true. It is a movie about political rebellion and not a movie about a young woman finding true love. And that was really, that's the thing. This 5 to 10 years from now, you can rewatch and see it as an artifact of where we were at as a culture at the time that they scripted it. And it's going to feel very dated very, very quickly. It already does, actually.
If audio is cutting out for you guys, refresh the stream.
Is the...
some people are having issues. Refresh the stream if audio is cutting out. Continue.
Okay. I hope the stream is okay. So... You know, you think about the original story, this is a coming-of-age tale for a young woman who is maturing into her beauty, and she is unaware of her beauty because it is new to her. Mm-hmm. And her stepmother is conscious of her own beauty and realizes that Snow White is becoming more beautiful than her. And this sends her into an absolute panic. And she's doing things to trick Snow White into realizing how beautiful she is in the original story. And that is not a feature or even a mention in this one. This one is using the word fairness as to refer to social justice rather than fairness as the more archaic term for beauty.
So let me take you through I was curious. Maybe I just don't have any ability to do so others, but I have to ask. I had to ask ChatGPT. I said, how does the 2025 movie differ in themes? And this is what it says. Redefining fairness, meaning that the film suggests that true fairness encompasses compassion, courage, and kindness over superficial beauty. Empowerment and agency, that definitely wouldn't have been a theme that long ago, which is Snow White takes an active role in her destiny, leading efforts to reclaim her kingdom and exemplify modern values of empowerment. There's that word again, modern, and community and solidarity. The story underscores the importance of collective action and cooperation in overcoming adversity. So the thing also is, guys, it felt to me that, look, you do get the poison apple. You do get True Love's Kiss. And True Love's Kiss felt like they wrote that at the last minute and just threw that in there, and it wasn't going to be in there at all. It felt like they added it in there when the backlash started to try to find a way to Frankenstein more well-liked elements of the original story into this movie.
Right.
And he does save her twice.
Yes, it feels like there were like 4 different versions of this movie that got slapped together very last minute, and there are still conflicting elements.
I wrote Prince Generico in my notes because he's the most generic person you've ever seen.
So like the main song of this movie is Waiting on a Wish, and it's new. And it's supposed to replace Someday My Prince Will Come as the main song that Snow White is singing. And I just wanted to like look at a couple of these lyrics to show you what the meaning changed. She said, will she lead or just be led? Is she the girl she always said she'd be? Toward the end of the song, she says, can I somehow, someway learn to be my father's daughter? Someone who could finally start speaking with a fearless heart, someone who just might be brave, someone no one needs to save.
Again.
So she sings this part, and they kept that in the song. But then you see her directly after that getting saved by Jonathan, not Prince, twice.
Which is why I feel like they added the her being saved part and that it wasn't actually congruent with the story.
Yeah. So
not with the story they were trying to tell.
He takes an arrow to save her life. And that's the first time. Then he also gives her true love's kiss while she is dead to bring her back to life.
And by the way, in the theater, I made the joke about consent just as somebody
Yeah.
else in the theater made the serious comment about consent. So
Yeah.
we got that going for us.
So that seems problematic.
He's also not handsome enough to be a prince.
Jonathan looks
Sorry.
like a finance bro. He's also 34 years old in real life, and he looks like it. So that I just feel like if you're gonna pick a relatively unknown person, pick a young person. It doesn't make much sense that they would choose this guy.
Oh, okay. Also, by the way, I want to stress again how what this movie is trying to train you to believe is that your loving your nice boss is what you really want to aspire to, because she saves the day by remembering the names of guards.
Yeah.
She like literally, it's like the bare minimum that your boss can do to come into work and keep you employed there, which is like a pizza party once a month and remember that what your name is. That's how she turns everyone around.
Yeah,
She's like, I remember you used to pick apples. You used to be this for a living. Now you're a prison guard.
So after Jonathan kisses her and brings her back to life, the first thing that she does is she's like, we have to stage a political coup. And then she leads the dwarfs.
She doesn't say that actual phrase.
No, she doesn't actually say that. She leads the dwarfs and she leads Jonathan and the rest of the bandits and everybody all the way back to the kingdom. And they go walk in the gates, and then the village starts chanting behind her like a war chant. By the way, just in the very first scene of this movie, when I see this kingdom, this village, whatever, it is so comically racially diverse that I just immediately checked out. It doesn't even make contextual sense. Like, why is there like a Chinese person over there and then there's like an African person over there? Yet they're not even at a seaport.
I actually find that less annoying than when it's just a little bit overdone. Like it's to the point where they've abandoned
Completely abandoned reality.
Well, again, if it was like 80% like white Norwegian people, and then 20%, then it's like okay,
yeah,
it looks like that person. This isn't a specific place. This is a fairy tale. It goes in line with that. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying I get it. And again, kids aren't going to care.
So the diverse villagers are all walking behind Rachel Zegler, Snow White, and she confronts Gal Gadot at the gate of the castle, and she's commanding the king's guard to kill Snow White in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I remember you, Gordon. You always loved golf. Or I don't know. Like she says
he's
that.
like, I did love golf. I won't kill you.
And he's like, you remember me? So they all were like, wait, she remembers our names, so we're going to mutiny. She leads a mass mutiny against the evil queen.
And I turned to Olivia and I said, I think that's exactly how Che Guevara did it.
Worst part. Actually, I don't know if this is the worst part, but then she just tells the evil queen to
Run.
go away.
And then I wrote in my notes, I go, please don't be banishment. Please don't be banishment.
Yeah.
She has to die by a mistake of her own hand, as is the trope in these types of things.
Yeah.
The other issue here is, and again, my brain. So do you guys remember in The Lion King when Simba is scared off by Scar and he comes back and Pride Rock just looks like shit? Like everything's dead. Nobody's been doing anything. It's just horribly maintained. Well, in the castle, in the kingdom, it's just dark out. It's just kind of overcast. Like nothing actually looks vastly different other than it's just overcast. That's a great visual indicator, but it's not like you see her, like you don't see her mistreating the peasants. You just saw the old king giving them pizza parties by helping them make pies once in a while, by ruling with love and kindness. Again, we are overanalyzing this as adults. We are not kids.
That was from a line that stuck out to me in the very beginning of the movie before grown Snow White is shown to us. So they're showing the communist utopia in which Snow White grew up before the evil queen ruined everything. And I don't remember if this was the narration or the song, but it said the people enjoyed the bounty of the land was enjoyed by all who tended it. And then they made multiple references
like you can come and take apples off my tree. It's like, bro, if you've got a tree, you need those apples for yourself.
One of the king's guard that Snow White calls out by name, she says, I remember you had a cherry tree in your yard and you would let everyone come over and take all the cherries. You turned no one away. You turned no one away from your, so that was like a major theme. And then there was also Jonathan stealing potatoes from the castle.
And well, she goes, is that your excuse for stealing?
Yeah.
It's like, shut up, Karen. Okay, I will say, if we're going to be 110% honest and fair, Rachel Zegler.
Fair?
Yes.
Are we going to be fair?
Yes, we are. They demanded
Fearless,
in this movie.
brave,
we
true.
are going to be fearless, brave, and fair. Rachel Zegler is the best part of this movie, at least in so much as there is a lot of music in this film. She sings very well. She inflects very well. She does manage to portray a likable character. It does not escape me that a lot of people are probably not going to be able to turn their brain off about the way that she behaves off screen. But if you're being fair to her, given the fact that she's playing a communist queen, then she does it well. It's fine. My critique of the music being that I said every single one of these sounds like a Mandy Moore song from 2004. And then I saw that it said Mandy Moore did the choreography, and I couldn't find any confirmation of that on IMDb. So I don't know if it's even the same Mandy Moore. But they all sounded like Mandy Moore songs to me, and she has a history of working with Disney. And a lot of the songs kind of ran together and felt very much the same to me, as if they could have all been the same song. But again, I'm not there for the music. I'm there to critique the bad CGI. And again, I think that the biggest missed opportunity was that you could have really built a beautifully real-looking world in a forest somewhere, and it would have helped this movie feel very stable and real in the middle half. And that's arguably the most important part, because you're building up. The crescendo's nothing. It's like they go to the castle, they're like, leave, nobody likes you anymore. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving. And then she goes back up and she dies by her own hand.
Yeah, in the animated version, she is still under the appearance, the evil queen is still under the appearance of the old widow, and she falls to her death off of a cliff, and that's that. And
that was, I was like when she was on the bridge, I'm like, fall off the bridge.
And don't you think that kids would be more disturbed by watching what we watched? The evil queen runs back in the castle, and then she, finds out that she's no longer the fairest, smashes her magic mirror in pieces, and then gets sucked into an abyss of hell in front of you. And then it shows you this from the perspective of being inside the abyss, and she's disintegrating into a million pieces into hell. And then the mirror closes back up again. Is that not more disturbing than just her falling off a cliff into the darkness?
No, I feel like
It felt more like we were watching her commit suicide.
Yeah. It's not like there's no real catharsis in overcoming the evil queen, because she wasn't formidable in the first place.
No.
Because it was hard to really follow her line of her monologues, because again, Gal Gadot does a lot of things well. She's charming on screen. She's got great screen presence when she's given the right roles, but she's not really known for her dramatic acting, where she really takes center stage.
Her singing ain't
even in Wonder Woman, a big part of the reason Wonder Woman was successful was not just because of her, but was because of her chemistry with Chris Pine, the way they played off of each other in those films. So in this, when she needs to be evil and really own the screen, I'm like, just bring back Angelina Jolie in another role.
Yeah, or something. I don't know.
Like Maleficent 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Didn't we say Christina Ricci would do a good job?
She could have done it.
Someone more suited to the role. It just couldn't have been Gal Gadot. I'm also not done complaining about Jonathan, really. I mean, I hate Jonathan. So you were asleep for his musical number?
Yeah, I fell asleep for 10 minutes.
But this is while we're supposed to still be convinced as the audience that maybe we ship this. And I wasn't even close to that point. And he does this musical number called Princess Problems.
And I do want to give Disney credit. It probably took real courage to not call it Princess Privilege, which I'm sure they were really, really hoping to.
Well, the point of it really is that he is shaming Snow White for her preoccupation with princess problems and thinks that she's so privileged and so out of touch with what the common man has been dealing with this whole time under the evil queen's rule. But that doesn't even make sense, because he's singing this knowing that she has been imprisoned, tortured, and an orphan for the majority of her life at this point. So why is he saying this?
Yeah, there was not even really, like, they tried to show a revelation earlier in the film when he is being confronted by the evil queen and she's there, and that's when he realizes that she is actually Snow White and is actually a prisoner, and they make no attempt to really show shock on his face or any sort of like, oh wow, rather than it doesn't make any sense logically later on.
It completely is void, and then he just kind of diminishes the importance of her looking for her late father and in this other kingdom, and he's just obnoxious, and they have no chemistry, and there's no
there isn't any real chemistry with them. I will say, like, I do believe that the kids will like the dwarves, and I do think the kids will like the magical creatures especially.
I liked the deer
and the squirrel
eyes,
and was it like an armadillo, like I saw that.
I liked the little porcupine.
Olivia loved the magical creatures. Olivia loved the dwarves. She thought those were cute, and I think that a lot of the women and the kids will like that stuff, and that will be enough. We are kind of saddled with this critique that's tied to all we know about Disney and their messaging. And sometimes it's very difficult for people to separate the two. But for the people that don't pay attention to that, they're not going to be going into this movie with all of that baggage. But the thing is it's not going to be that many people to begin with, because it made like $3.5 million only, which is comparable to Dumbo, which was a humongous box office flop. So if the movie makes $100 million this weekend globally, that's not good considering the size of its budget. It felt disjointed. It felt like it had a million things to say while only saying one thing, and that's you should be fair and fair. And it tried to tell 37 stories at once while not telling any really at all. Dopey having the best character arc for people will probably be surprising. And again, for the people that actually like the dwarves, that is probably going to be a great payoff for them. But I think that for most people, just wait for it to show up on streaming. The visuals weren't nearly good enough to justify spending the money it costs to go to the movies to see it on the big screen. Like you're going to be just as happy watching this on Disney Plus or Tubi, as Mary would call it. Right?
Well, I honestly think, you pointed out off camera that people are like, oh, well, it's just a movie and it's something to do with like show my kid this movie for a couple hours so that they can, just be occupied with something for a couple hours. But I would say it's just as easy to occupy them with the animated Snow White for a couple hours as it would be to spend money on going to watch this at the theater. So it's not worth it for you to see this. It's also just not worth it to watch it at all because it really is lifeless, soulless, and I think only a shallow person could watch the animated classic version of this movie and think that it needed something else to make it deep. It was always deeper than they seem to realize, and they needed to girl bossify it.
I do think that Rachel Zegler does
everything that was lovable about it.
I do think that Rachel Zegler does perfectly fine, and I'm sure the material spoke to her, everything except for getting help from the prince at all. I'm sure that the movie spoke to her. She can sing. I don't think that her career is necessarily over. She's going to do Evita on Broadway next. I think she's going to be just fine. We're
going to be seeing more of her.
The bigger issue here is Gal Gadot. It kind of proves to you that Gal Gadot has a very specific niche in Hollywood, and this is not her niche. So I guess, Palestine wins this one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.